Hello there, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to Shared Tangos with Trent and Ziori. This is episode number 3, but we do not have Trent with us. The baby, folks, the baby. You gotta see the baby. It's here. It's happened. Trent's second baby has arrived. He got called off yesterday right before we were about to start the podcast. Kind of a blessing in disguise. It was during his warm-up stream where he was doing his research and getting prepared, so it didn't actually interrupt the show, but we had a little bit of a reschedule. So here we are with our Dreamhack Leipzig recap. We're going to talk all things playoffs, and of course, we've got a great guest today to fill the shoes of Trent. It's Lyrical. Gabe, how you doing, my friend?
I'm doing good. Up bright and early on this rainy Oregon day of misery outside, but beauty inside. And after 3 podcasts have already taken over, and I'm gonna just rub Trent out of the picture. It's gonna be great.
Lyrical invades. Yeah, I mean, I'm glad that you are able to scramble and make some time for us here on like 16 hours notice. To be fair, the baby emergency is a good one. Everyone is very accommodating with a baby. Nobody was like, I don't know, man, I got a pretty tight schedule. Everyone I messaged said, oh, dude, totally, I'd love to help out. He's having a baby.
I love it. I think that it's an interesting dynamic seeing like esports people begin to become real humans, and also like have real life obligations.
Yeah.
Because if there's a way to make it work, that's like the dream, and so everybody wants it to work because everybody wants to see like we're gonna have a future in this. We can keep doing this into real life as well. So that's a really cool thing. I totally agree.
Yeah, it's. I mean, I turned 30 this year, and that reality set in for me, man. I mean, I feel like more often than not, casters are married now, or at least seriously paired off. Even a lot of pro players have had weddings, and the family has become a priority. You've been married for a while now.
Yeah, a little while. I started my esports career the day I got married. That's when I quit my job and started doing this.
Damn, that's a big day for a number of reasons.
I didn't tell my wife's family though, because I was like, let's wait a year and see how this goes before it actually happens. So they didn't know that I had quit my job at that point.
Wow, that's damn. Yeah. That's diving in head first, dude. So we've got a little bit of news to talk about. We are not really going to talk about the patch today. That's the one little caveat I want to throw out there. I know everyone's very excited about some of the new stuff in Dota. No more Fusion Rune. Plenty to talk about there. We'll probably mention it. I haven't played a game yet. Trent and I are planning on doing another podcast pretty soon once we've gotten a chance to actually play some games, watch some games, all that stuff. I don't know if he's really going to get a chance to do that in this coming week, so we'll see what happens there. But that's still the tentative plan. We might find another guest to fill the slot there. Who the fuck knows? But Gabe, we at least got to cast some of the group stage of Dreamhack, so we got our front row seat to the beginning part. Were you on Group D?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Group D was pretty nuts. Navi, EG. Liquid and Pain. And I think that the big surprise everybody was talking about that was Navi coming in top of the group, actually able to beat out EG in that group as well, which was kind of, I mean, it's GSL, so those things are always a little bit weird. I don't know how you felt about it this time around. What group are you guys on again?
We were A, so we got the Nigma, Fnatic, Aster, TNC group, which was pretty cool. We had some pretty hot and cold games. Obviously, the Nigma matches were pretty highly trafficked, so that was a real treat. I really thought they were going to cast Group A on the mainstream because of Nigma, Fnatic, but I guess they wanted Team Secret. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's hard not to like to watch them, and I think also, as far as like other representation, it's all of the regions in Group B, right? Like you got Secret, you got Vici, which is the predominant Chinese team, I would think, going into this major, because LGD is not playing, and then Beast Coast, SA, and Chaos Esports. And I think Beast Coast won like a ton of fans at TI, and they've got like, I think that they're probably a lot of people's second favorite team. Like they have their main region that they love, and then it's like Beast Coast, and everybody's like, how can you hate Beast Coast? They're just awesome.
It's true. They've really done it. I think they've really quelled the dialogue of, is this a fluke or is this team here to stay? And they've made these kind of runs enough times now that they're pretty much here to stay. It wasn't just a one-time fluke. Another top 8 finish at a major it's super respectable from a region that still is working on finding its footing a little bit.
you remember like the days when it was like, oh, the South America team won a best of 3, right? And that was the news. Now they're getting top
I remember
8
when it
at
was
TI
they took
Major.
a game off somebody. It's like, dude, they went to 3 games. Come on, this team's legit.
Yeah, times have changed, and that's given those slots, getting people down there and building up the region. Dota's growing, at least in that way.
So for those that missed the major somehow, a lot of spoilers about to come. Team Secret did take first place. Awesome for Secret, not great for my prediction of an all-China finals, VG versus IG. You guys said that was crazy and that was too much towards IG, and you were absolutely right. IG was eliminated by Evil Geniuses in lower bracket round 4 in 3 games there. So IG had an okay run. They did place higher than Beast Coast. They were the ones that actually eliminated Beast Coast. But this event was really all Secret, EG, Vici, and then a little bit of Alliance sprinkled in there. The Team Liquid Alliance series, that was a big one, dude. That lower bracket matchup for elimination was pretty fucking fun.
It's kind of insane that I'm just going to be completely honest right now. I did not believe in this Alliance roster like at all. When I saw it, I was like, so it's basically all the players that were left over that didn't find a team before. That was how I viewed it, and that's how I thought about it in my head. But holy crap, they've like come together, and it feels as if that's almost, you know, people talk about like recipe for success as far as a Dota team, and it's like get all the best players or build a team that's really cohesive. And it feels like this next one is like get the B team together of people that like are just gonna, you know, glom onto each other and say we're gonna find a way to make this work, and it works, and it looks awesome. I'm really impressed with the Alliance team.
Yeah, I had similar feelings watching this squad. Nico Baby, we watched in the TI qualifiers in the SEA region. So I kind of felt like a little bit of a connection just watching him play so much and seeing that, dude, this dude's got some potential. And he had been spending so much time just making educational content, right? That was his whole thing.
Yeah.
Was it Game Leap or one of those? And it's cool to see a place. I've spent a lot of time talking to Jenkins. I feel for that grind. It's a grind. You know, it's not a bad one. It's a niche. It's a way to pay the bills and you know, do some cool stuff in Dota and build a reputation. But it does not compare to playing on the main stage. So it's always cool when you can see players that actually have that ability start to realize that potential and get that big shot, man. What was this? A 4th place finish for Alliance? That's a big deal, dude. 4th place at a major.
To me, that signals that if they get like just into another major, they're probably going to TI. And even as it stands right now, they're at 1,800 DPC points, right?
They're pretty good. That's 6th place.
Yeah. The only thing that I'd be worried about is, are they in a position where if things do start to fall apart, how well does that team stay together? Because I think right now, one of the things that they have going for them too, and I think this is the thing that Nico Baby had going for him at TI, is it feels like when they play, they kind of don't give a fuck. They just like, they go in, right? And that's like a mentality that I think works really, really well for some people if they're in a winning position, if they start winning over and over again. But if things go wrong, that's always the big test of how can a team stick together. And I think that they can do it. I think that, you know, having a veteran like Loda that's kind of more of the emotional coach and making sure that things are going that way, that's a good way to do it.
Yeah, no, that's certainly a fair angle. Having a really experienced player at the helm is certainly good. And they have some experience on the team. Like Fada's been around for a while. Hanskin and Limp have also been around for a while. I mean, they played Heroes of Newerth competitively, so they're you know, they're pretty comfortable on the main stage now. 33 also, he's played with some pretty experienced players himself. So they do have the pieces. But I also agree with what you just said. We've seen that same during the honeymoon phase, that I don't give a fuck play style can be a blessing and a curse. Like it works for you until you hit that wall, and then when you hit that wall and you go up against a Secret or an EG who knows the winning formula or secret combination against that strategy, you just flop over. You know, we've seen it happen to Beast Coast. We've seen it happen in CIS, like old FNG squads. I feel like that's kind of the hallmark of a lot of his teams. They look unstoppable until like the 3rd or 4th round from the finals, and then somebody finally hits them hard with a stopper.
Yeah, totally. I completely agree. And it's like you saw that a little bit against EG. They got 2-0'd by him, didn't really have great answers. And that's when they ended up going out of the tournament. But going out in 4th place is like super solid for that roster.
So Nigma, let's talk about Nigma a little bit. They qualified through the minor, and they ended up placing not too great. They did well in the groups. They won Group A over Fnatic, Aster, TNC. TNC definitely fell flat in Group A, had higher expectations there. Nigma lost their opening series in the upper bracket against EG 2-1. That was a pretty good series. Nigma slaughtered the first game with a Necrophos Doom PL, and then lost 2 kind of longer methodical games. Game 3 was the one where they played that Tinker LC, and it did not go their way. It was against a Bloodseeker OD. And
it feels like those are the types of games that EG likes to play, right? Is sort of the games where things can settle down and you can allow your just like farm efficiency to outdo your opponents. And I would say of the Nigma team that like they can do a lot of different things, but I don't know if there's a style that's like emblematic of this team necessarily. Obviously, you have some things like Weeha being that playmaker and Miracle wanting to like be more of like the hard carry type of heroes. But I also think that Miracle likes to get involved. So to me, it feels like it's the type of roster where I actually like the EG matchup against this new iteration of this team more so than I would have otherwise. Which I don't know if that's going to be continuing going forward. I think it's a better matchup for them than the roster, if that makes sense. So like I think that they're equally skilled, but they just match up a little bit better against them.
Yeah, I think EG is definitely gelling better right now. When you watch them play, it just feels like they're all on the same page. They move with a purpose. It's very fluid. Nigma has these moments where they look pretty fluid, but still sometimes where it's like, that's not what you meant to do there. You know, the kind of chain feeds where one person gets caught, then someone else kind of goes in, and you're like, guys, not on the same page. Stop, breathe, reset. I'm looking at the stats from Game 3, and I also forgot that was where Abed had a perfect no-death OD game, and Arteezy played Bloodseeker against Slark. Can I just take a moment to give a shout-out to Bloodseeker against Slark? That is one of the hardest counters, just in terms of, like, conceptually what one hero does, the other hero's just a trump card. You know, Bloodseeker... I'm all in on that hard counter. If you want to pick Slark, you kind of need to ban Bloodseeker if the other team has anyone that can play it.
Well, I would say that there's ways in which you can play around it a little bit. And I think that one of the best things is not having the Slark be the centerpiece of your team, which is why to me I like the Tinker pick in that game. Because it feels like Slark in a way can be that I guess like the way that we were seeing him played more often was like getting active early, Diffusal Blade, sometimes drums as well, or like the Aghanims, and then like moving around, and then Tinker just farms and then becomes this monster. But that means that you're playing against like a OD late game, and I actually think that to me the hero of that game and the hero of the tournament was Tiny. That to me it felt like it was Tiny as like this just guy that gets so much stuff done. I love that hero, and I think that if you looked in the finals too, it was like every game that Tiny got played except for one, Tiny won, or it was banned.
Yeah, let's see here. So Lich ended up being the most picked. Was played in 51 matches. It feels like every tournament ends up finding this key support that's not scary enough to ban in most games, but still so good that you kind of want to pick him. Combos with a lot of heroes. Crystal Maiden has filled this role in a lot of metas. Disruptor a lot of times has filled. So Lich was the king. After that, it was Doom, and then Treant, Slark, Rubik, and then Tiny had 31 picks, and Tiny had a 58% win rate. That's pretty good.
Well, and the other thing about that too is that it's like a lot of those heroes that were really scary, like Disruptor, Doom, IO, they were getting like first phased, banned, or picked. So they were like crazy high up there. Tiny kind of inhabited that region that was just outside of it where you really didn't want to ban it. But he enabled so many other lineups. Like there were so many games where it was like Storm Spirit, Tiny, and then you just like have that easy initiation that starts the game. I think it also fits really well that there were certain like player hero combos. So PYW to me, like when I think of him, the thing that I think of is position 4 Tiny, making stuff happen around the map. And then Crit playing on his Tiny was another super solid player. And then you saw in the finals that the last 2 games, Secret ended up being able to get it onto Yapsor. And that was kind of one of those big, changing things, I felt like, where you enable so many other things to happen with your draft by getting it.
Yeah. So anyway, circling back to Nigma a little bit, that was a great tangent. Right. No, so starting in the upper bracket means Nigma gets knocked down to round 2 lower bracket, skipping the best of ones entirely. And then Nigma got matched up against Beast Coast, who won the Peruvian Super Bowl against Pain in the best of one the round prior. Nigma gets eliminated by Beast Coast 2-1 in the second round of the lower bracket. It did go 3 games, but Beast Coast took game 1, and then they took the closer in game 3. This was probably the upset of the tournament. I don't know if there were any others that stood out as much as, like, I really thought Nigma was going to go pretty far, and Beast Coast was the stopper, dude.
Totally. I think, though, that everybody thought that they could do it. They just didn't expect it to happen, right? Like, I think everybody at this point is saying that Beast Coast is a good team, but they're like, are they really good enough to beat Nigma, this squad? And I think it's maybe more emblematic also of Nigma coming back and not being, like, maybe not being, like, quite as polished as they were, going into TI, obviously. I think that they did play through the minor, and that gives you a lot of experience, but it's not against the same level of competition. This was early in the tournament, like, relatively speaking. Yeah, you went through the upper bracket, but to me, at least, it felt like this was a team that could have gone far. I think that Nigma would have been happy to play anybody else in the lower bracket.
Really?
But Beast Coast is probably the one that I would be most scared of if I was that team.
Of the other options, you might be right. They're very explosive. I mean, game 1, they pulled out the Brood, and Nigma got caught off guard. So, okay, let's say game 1 is we got outdrafted, call it a wash, whatever. A great cheese strat, you got us. Nigma wins game 2. So we've got to, and game 2 was 35 minutes. It was relatively quick. It was a PL Winter Wyvern. Just kind of took advantage of them. The TA Lifestealer from Beast Coast couldn't quite grab a hold. Nigma went with one of my favorite heroes, although I guess it's not a great testament. The Pugna. I keep calling for the Pugna. I think he's a little bit underrated. They had a Wisp, Lifestealer, Bat Rider, and that Night Stalker, and they lost in 42 minutes to Beast Coast's Void, LC, Nyx, Winter Wyvern, Disruptor. Now, I confess, I did not see this game through. I watched a fair bit of the major, but I didn't see this one. And I'm looking at the graph. Nigma were actually ahead like 4 minutes before the game ended, and then they took an awful, awful, awful team fight, and it just ended shortly after that in favor of Beast Coast. So part of me wants to pull that up and just watch the last couple minutes of that game, because it looks like it went from pretty stable to big-time throws.
Well, I think also, though, that's a lineup that is that's the goal for Beast Coast, right? Like Disruptor, Ags, Void, and Wyvern.
Yeah.
It's really easy to just lose the game, potentially. Oh yeah, and that was the mid Disruptor game.
You're right. Yeah, that's the Deso Disruptor. Looking at the inventory,
I did watch that. The Chris Luck played that really, really well, and I think that if I remember right, it was Disruptor in the early phases. And the key to that game was the Nyx, actually. So what they were doing in the game was that they were able to, like, make a ton of really good early moves with him, where he was setting up for kills over and over and over again. And then kind of, like, I don't remember what it was. I think it was mainly the Bat Rider that he kept on, like, interrupting, not like Lasso, obviously, but being able to get the Spike Carapace off when he was running around trying to make stuff happen. It was really solid.
It's true. Kuro was playing a lot of Bat Rider, even in the group stage and then into the main event, and Nyx is traditionally that go-to sort of hard counter to the Bat Rider. You get a free stun. You can't stop fire. You can't just not use Firefly. It's like such a key part of the hero. Nyx is also pretty good against Wisp. It gives you some scouting tools if you can ever catch him. Man, it's awesome that Disruptor actually works as a core now. And we were seeing it more and more because this Aghanims is so good. And there's a couple of these heroes, sort of like the OD as well, that have these key timings. You get this Aghanims, the game changes, and you can fight around this timing perfectly. We're seeing Disruptors move into the 4s, like, all right, yep, they're giving Disruptor farm priority. This is standard. And leave it to Beast Coast, like, well, why don't we just double down and let him farm mid? He can get some items after that. Let him buy a Deso. Fuck it. Who cares?
I mean, isn't it kind of like broken to a certain extent when like the spell is just so good that you can just change up the entire concept of the hero just to like make sure that you get it earlier? To me, I love it, but I also kind of hate it a little bit.
Yeah, AoE Doom turns out is pretty damn good.
For 7 seconds? Like, what?
Yeah.
It's crazy.
I mean, Trent and I cast one of the games in the group stage with the Disruptor Naga combo, and it was one of those classic, there's no way they can win this unless they can get the perfect setup like 3 fights in a row. And they did it. You just smoke, run at him. You see one person, pop the song, hope there's somebody else next to him. You catch 2 with the setup from the Disruptor, and Naga blows him up inside of the kinetic field. You actually can't do anything besides just have one person stand out in front to break smokes, and then they waste the combo on one guy. Like, it's hard to always be spread out, always, especially late game when everyone's moving around all fast and there's blink daggers and all that shit.
Right.
It's bananas.
Well, and I think that part of the reason that works, and this gets back to a lot of my thoughts on this game and why it was very specific to this patch, or not this game, this meta, and why it was very specific to this patch. There were a lot of heroes that, like, previously you would have to get like a Glimmer Cape or a Force Staff or one of these like sort of middling items. But when you had all of these neutral items that were coming out that provide really good utility, it felt like there were more of those heroes where it's just like, I'm going to get my one big item and then just fill the rest of my inventory slots with neutrals, which I think, not to touch on something that you guys are going to go into later, but I think that's why some of the changes in the patch were made the way they were. Because it feels like it was just too good, being able to just fill your inventory with neutral items.
Yeah, it's just like there's no real opportunity cost or something.
Yeah.
It just, you get all these items, your inventory fills up, and I don't know, a lot of them aren't that impactful compared to still making the right plays and just playing on the level that pros do. But, you know, some of the tier 4, some of the tier 5 items, as we saw in a number of games, are pretty bananas. I mean, I had in my notes even before the patch came out, just Fusion Rune, as we need to talk about this fucking thing. And I remember saying, I think it was in my Discord, just chatting with people about it, I think this is an item that was not balanced by giving it charges.
No.
You know, like Repair Kit, okay, cool. If that didn't have charges, it'd be totally busted. And the fact that it just goes away makes it a little bit more balanced. Fusion Rune, it can just be a one-time single use, and that shit, it comes out so late in the game that you already have a raid boss. So you have a raid boss, and then you inject him with steroids and some other cocktail of uppers, downers, whippies, zippies, and flippies, and dude, it's not Dota anymore. It's
no.
I'm kind of a Fusion Rune hater. You know, it was cool. I am not sad that shit's been removed, though. I think it's about time.
I think, though, the thing about it is a large part of the reason that it did get nerfed, and again, not to delve too much into the patch changes, but something to watch out for, is because we saw it at the major. And I wonder how many other sort of Fusion Rune-esque type things exist in those late game items that we just haven't seen. For me, in my money, Ballista feels so frustrating to play against. And if you guys have played against like a gyrocopter or a sniper or any of those, specifically gyrocopter with Ballista, your life just is pain. So I'm a little bit concerned that there's more of those items that maybe are a little bit too nuts. But the big thing for me was just the idea of like even the tier 1 or tier 2 items, filling up your inventory with those as supports, and then that gets you to your Aghanims on Disruptor. But yeah, I think that Beast Coast proving in that series and in that game that like not only can they do the stuff that they're known for, but they can mix it up at the last minute and throw a mid disruptor at you. And this is why that team is so good, because they're not just a one-trick pony anymore. It's not just Wraith King. There's other stuff going on.
Yeah, very very hard to read for sure. I would certainly agree. Yeah, Apex is the other pretty wild tier 5
yeah.
item. But I don't feel like it's totally broken. It's just insanely good. What blows my mind about the tier 5s, not to go too deep on this, I had to look up a few. The fucking pirate hat. Is this just a meme of an item? 150 attack speed, then you steal 300 gold from heroes you kill. Sounds cool, except when you remember that you're getting this item at 75 minutes. Who gives a shit? What are you stealing gold for?
Well, the stealing gold thing might be relevant for taking away the buyback. To me, that's the only way that it could be more relevant now.
I mean, yeah, it just 300 doesn't feel like a significant amount of gold at 80 minutes into a Dota game.
That's true. Well, I just think about like if there is that one moment, like it's definitely nowhere near as good as like Apex was last patch, but it became, I think, significantly better than dropping a bounty rune at 80 minutes, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Like, it's much better than it was before. I still don't think it's great, but at least now, to me, what stands out, and I'm sure that you think about these items the same way in some ways, like how that would fit into a cast. And you imagine that this, I'm just thinking about this moment where, like, somebody goes all in to, buy their BKB at 80 minutes because it's some stupid player. Or something like that, and then like they die without using their BKB, and then they don't have buyback, right?
Yeah.
And then that's like a moment where you're like, the pirate hat, it's done it
it's
for
true.
us. It's like that to me sounds really cool.
Now that you've hyped that up, that's my new casting goal: is get to a point where I can legitimately exclaim, "The pirate hat! Barbossa's back again!" Oh, dude, I got pirate references for days. All right, let's Blackbeard this shit. So to stay on Beast Coast for a minute, though. It's funny, we talked about this dynamic that happens with these teams where as much as we're complimenting them, they look so creative, they pull out this mid disruptor, they eliminate Nigma, and then they go into their next series against Invictus Gaming and they get slaughtered. It's a 2-0 series. It's like 2 40 or 50 minute games, but never a moment when Beast Coast was ahead. You look at the graphs for both series and it's just IG kind of edging the lanes, winning the mid game, winning the late game. And it's a little scary because Beast Coast didn't pick super crazy heroes. They played comfort zone like Wisp, Slark, Lesh, Lion, Sand King was the IG draft, and Beast Coast played Enchantress, Winter Wyvern, Puck, PL, Magnus. That's like the most meta lineup you can draft for Beast Coast. You've got the double sustain from Winter Wyvern Ench. You've got pretty good laners. You've got scaling. Magnus is a really, really strong, hot, dominant hero right now. Great team fight. And they couldn't get any control in that game. They just got outclassed by IG. So I don't know where to rank this team. I think they're about 8th place. That 8 out of 16. Yeah, Beast Coast is pretty good. They can upset some of these slightly better teams. They've got their shit together, but they're not quite tier 1 yet. They're not a true EG, Secret, Vici, Liquid Alliance, IG somewhere. They're not quite there yet.
I think that the difference there is probably the drafting, if I had to guess. Because you saw that like a last pick arc, if I'm not mistaken. And they have who I think is a really good coach on Invictus Gaming, Super with the little S. This was the guy from IGV back in the day. He was the dynamic duo with Dogfights, with one of the holders of the best name in Dota ever. But really good mind, and one of the big problems that you saw with him and why his career didn't take off as much was because he was from a region in China where they had a ton of visa issues. And I guess that since then they've sorted that out since playing as a coach for the IG main squad. But you look at some of these things, right? And it's like a last pick Vayne versus a last pick Arc Warden for Beast Coast. Sand King, a hero that like isn't as often seen, that can really mess up a lot of those laning matchups and make things tough for PL. And then suddenly you've got like this combo of Sand King Leshrac, which is really hard to deal with. So to me, that speaks to the issue with this Beast Coast team, which could be needing to find a little bit more consistency with their drafts. And if they can do that, then that probably is what puts them over the edge. Because right now, it's definitely not talent and individual play in game. It's just sometimes making sure that they get that draft at least breaking even, if not falling behind. That's what they need to do.
Sure. And maybe we should take a moment to talk about Arc Warden. And maybe we can lean on Lyrical for some analysis here, because last podcast, I tried to bring up this very conversation, and Trent's reaction was, I don't understand Arc Warden. I go to events, and I talk to pro players about Arc Warden, and they say, I don't know Arc Warden. We don't play that hero. And I don't understand Arc Warden. So, Lyrical, save us. I think Arc Warden's pretty good. As we saw at this event, he is still a crazy sleeper pick. A lot of teams, they're getting better at playing against the mechanics. I heard Kyle point that out a number of times of like, if you play around the Spark Wraith, if you know what the bubble does, you can mitigate a lot of this hero's damage. When we see Arc Warden roll teams, sometimes it's because they don't group up to split the damage and they're taking max Arc Warden damage, and it makes the hero look more busted than he really is if you play the mechanics right.
I think that that's true. I think that that's one of the easiest things to do, is to learn to play against it. But one of the other issues is learning to play with it. And that's to me the harder part. He sort of inhabits this weird phase, I feel like, in the game where he's like, he changes the way that you play. Like there's certain heroes that just change the game, right? Like you got Io, you have Arc Warden, you have Tinker, Old Naga Siren, Alchemist. It makes it so that you have to play a different game than Techies. Techies is another good example where it's like you are now playing a whole nother game, and it makes balancing that hero really tough. So there's going to come this time where like Arc Warden just wins everything. But because of that, like the teams that play Arc Warden are going to win everything at that point, and then everybody else is probably just going to ban it. So it's like, is it a good Arc Warden patch or not, right? that's kind of the question. And then if it is, it gets banned out. And then if it's like a mid lane patch, then you're gonna have these certain games where he just owns everybody else.
Yeah. It makes it harder to balance because you don't have a good sample size, and the sample that you have is pretty lopsided. Of all right, he's either totally busted or ignored completely. So,
well, and more so than that, it's like if you're an Arc Warden team, you have an incentive to not play that hero until it's like the do or die game, right? Because you don't want people to realize, oh, this hero is broken at this point in time. And that's going to be what you need to watch for, I think, as like a team looking at when do we watch out for this hero? Because they're probably not going to play it until it's like the last match or what the elimination game. And that's a little bit scary in some ways, but if they think that this hero is really, really broken at this time, it could be hard for other teams to know that as well if they don't play the hero.
No, that's definitely a good point. He's like a compounding issue.
81% win rate in this tournament.
Yeah. No, he's definitely in that like brood trump card category of he tends to get picked when it's a good Arc Warden game. Trent and I always talk about this with OD. You got to take his win rate with a grain of salt, because a lot of times he gets 9th or 10th picked when it's objectively a good OD game. That's why you pick that hero, so he tends to win when he's picked up, all things equal, right?
Totally.
Doesn't necessarily mean he's objectively busted. But it's still OD. Not that I'm a big fan. So Secret EG. Let's talk about the finals a little bit, and then I want to loop back to talk about the bottom four, the folks that did not perform at this major. So finals, a gift to Dream League, a 5-game finals, a consistent broadcast of over 100,000 concurrents on the English stream. Viewership for this finals was fantastic. The first thing I did when it was over was ping their main project manager for Dota and say, dude, congrats on the sick fucking event. That was like a dream come true. Almost flawless execution, I would say, in terms of like no downtime, really smooth transitions in the production. This event to me felt more like a show. Sometimes, especially sometimes the minors, I think, not We Play, they really did a job similar to Dream League to make it feel more like a show. But sometimes these events feel just like Dota and panel. Then Dota, then panel, then some commercials, then Dota panel, panel, Dota, Dota panel, and that's kind of it. And you can really see the formula. In Dream League, they use the red button. They break it up with all these different hosts. Rich is always doing something ridiculous and crazy. They've found this perfect cast of people that matches up with their brand. Even the band. I think the band was legit 10 out of 10. They sounded good. The transitions were smooth. They had them on camera for the perfect amount of time.
Right.
Like if you go and watch those late night shows, the band is really supplementary. They don't like show the band for more than 10 to 15 seconds at a time. There isn't a 3-minute interlude of the band rocking out. And I think Dream League found that perfect balance. And I liked that it was rock music. It called me crazy, but I'm getting tired of electronica. I listen to it all the time. I want to get hyped up before the match. Like they were shredding, dude. I was rocking out in my bedroom in between games. That shit was awesome. It worked. Well, I was legit getting hyped up in between games. Then OD Pixel comes on camera. You're already like headbanging from the metal, and he starts screaming, and it's perfect. It's the opposite of the TI that had Deadmau5, you know?
With you. I mean, it makes me wonder, like, could you fit the band into playing during the team fights? That's the next level, right?
That would be sick, actually.
That would be really cool. But so I think that another point that I would make about it is also... the other thing that sticks out to me about Dream League always is like the quirkiness, right? There's like these weird things that you have. Like last time, it was like the one-man band thing that stuck out to me, right? That really sticks in my memory. And there's a worry that you could overdo it, where you could like, oh, let's just bring in this weird thing, or let's like only play polka music in between the breaks. But they sprinkle it in just enough that it reminds you that this is this weird, funky, fun thing, but it doesn't become like it doesn't become a style. It becomes a quirk, right? I think that's a difference there, where it could turn to like very annoying very easily. But there was this moment that stuck out to me that was like, this is kind of weird, but I really like it. Did you see like the magician guy that was like inside the blown up balloon?
I saw the magician clip where he had the table that he was lifting up, and Rich was helping him. It was like the table, but it was being held by just the tablecloth, sort of. It's sort of hard to explain.
Okay.
So I don't think I saw this one though.
So he came out with like a giant balloon and a leaf blower, and then blew up the balloon with the leaf blower, and then put it over his head, and then proceeded to like sort of do like one of these moves where he was like bouncing the balloon up and down on his head. Okay. And then he pulled it over his entire body, took off his pants inside the balloon, and then popped the balloon, and it turned into a skirt he was wearing. It was so bizarre and so weird, but it was set to music, and it was this moment that was just like very strange but very entertaining simultaneously. Yeah. And it's like, that's what you want to have in the downtime breaks. And it felt like it was the same type of thing to me as the one-man band that they had earlier in like the last tournament, but it was different enough that it didn't become like annoying or weird. It was like it's very cool, the energy that they have.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be honest, dude. I've got a little bit of a soft spot for magicians. I think it's a really cool art form, and I've also seen a lot of really shitty magicians. So when you see good ones, it really makes you appreciate like the creativity of coming up with tricks like that, where it's not some, Marvel thing, but when you look at the context of this setup, you're like, how the fuck did he do that? Yeah. And it was the same thing with the table, because afterwards, I don't know if Rich was in on it, but, they picked up the table and flipped it around. It was like this. It looks like a pretty legit table. Like, I don't know where the straps are. I'm sure they're there somewhere, but I don't think it's easy to make magic look cool in the modern age of camera shots. And there were a couple times where they cut to the wide angle cameras, and I was just like, woo, I hope this guy knows where the cameras are, because we're about to see a show. All right, Dream League, let's see the tricks. And I also hate magic that is just camera angles. I hate it when like the reveal is like, and the audience wasn't really an audience. They were paid off not to react to the sounds or whatever. It's just like, that's not fucking magic. That's just Hollywood, dude. If I wanted to see that kind of magic, I'd go watch Fast and the Furious Part 9. It's physics.
Do they have
defying.
a magic show in that?
No, it's physics defying shit. They're driving cars under tractor trailers and shit. It's magic. The only explanation is magic.
First time that I've seen like a shitty magic show compared to Fast and the Furious. I agree. I think that it's just willingness to try something new, and that's the most important thing. And I don't think that all of this we can like say it's Dream League just being amazing. They definitely also got lucky with the final teams that were in the grand finals. Like
Oh yeah.
Secret EG, you can't get better than that.
And
As like
Vici
a
mixed
final.
into the top three.
Right.
Like there's that whole kind of regional rivalry that happens. It gets China really involved. You know, Vici top three, I think, just adds to that ambiance of this is a really competitive global tournament, and we're seeing three regions really pretty represented. You know, EG is sort of NA. They're an NA org, you know, but you know, technically, right, we're getting this region representation. Right? And,
Did you see that tweet
cool.
that OD put out? It was like all of the different players and all of their nationalities next to it.
Oh, I did.
And all of them were different.
Yeah.
And you know, you look also on top of that, it's also with the coaches. You've got Heen from Korea and then Bulba from the US also. Very, very cool to have like that to me sticks out as one of the coolest things about this tournament is that it's not just that it's the three different regions, but then within that it's all of them from a different country. Like that's it almost feels like it's something beyond just normal esports stuff. That this to me feels like it's the type of thing that you could tell to somebody outside of esports and they'd be like, that's amazing. That's such a cool story.
Oh, and it's also a really cool mixture of countries. You know, it's not just a global leaders from GDP or something that you'd think. You know, Nisha's from Poland, Matumba Man is Finland, obviously Zai is Sweden, Yapzor's from Jordan, Puppy's from Estonia. And I also loved about that tweet too that OD included some of the dual citizenships. Like for Bulba, he put India and United States, and it showed that extra level of like, dude, we're like beyond global here. You know, this is we're totally cross culture, cross country, cross time zone. Dota's just fucking people, man, and that's a beautiful thing.
There's not even any other esport that's like that, is there? I don't think so.
I mean, there's a lot of fucking esports out there, but not that I know of. A lot of them tend to be more regional focused. Dota is one of the few that has totally broken that down. I mean, like, whoever play with whoever. And Ramsey's being from Russia playing with this squad. Abed from from the Philippines.
Right.
Like, it's wow.
It's a cool moment.
It really
Definitely.
is. No, that's a great thing to highlight, man.
But
all right, on that positive note, let's talk about the bottom four. What do you say?
Sounds great. I love it. Let's go.
Pain Gaming, Chaos Esports Club, Reality Rift, and Virtus Pro. Reality Rift was the one that I think most people were like, we don't know what to make of this team. They're from Southeast Asia. This was that player Hustla from Mongolia.
Oh, Hustla.
Big fan of that name. I didn't really get to see too much of Reality Rift. They weren't the group that I cast, and they were eliminated in the best of one by TNC. So,
right. Well, and I think that's an unlucky draw as well, having the two Southeast Asian teams or two of them face off against each other.
Yeah.
Because, you know, that's just something that they've played against them so many times, I'm sure. I will say Alacrity has stood out to me as somebody that I keep remembering as being so freaking good. And I would love to be able to see him make it onto a larger organization. I think that he's probably, to me, one of the standouts that, like, if they make it to a couple more tournaments, then he gets picked up by one of the big Southeast Asian organizations, and then he probably gets sniped by somebody else eventually. It's just always so tough, like that there's amazing players all over the world, but he to me stands out. Like he's to me the Armel of this year from where Armel was a couple years ago.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Looking at that best of one where they were eliminated, it looked like a pretty quiet early game, and then TNC won a mid-game team fight and just kind of took over. KP played Enigma, actually. Went 2-2-21.
Hey-o.
And showed off that Enigma is still more than viable. Great team fighter, some lane presence, farms well. Farms really well. 42-17. Ugh, rough go for Reality Rift. But Reality Rift and VP were in the same group, and Virtus Pro actually was bottom of that group. And the big win for Reality Rift was going 2-0 over VP. They won a 60-minute Meepo game 1, and then they won a 42-minute game with a TA and Lesh against a Naga DP draft. And okay, so this game, I got to talk about this a little bit because we mentioned it specifically in the last podcast. This draft from VP, I feel like if I were playing professional Dota and drafting, this is the kind of lineup I would want to draft. It's Disruptor, Naga, Dazzle, Underlord, DP.
All right.
4 of those heroes, all of them outside of the Naga, are like my go-to. Hey, Trent, I think Underlord would be... Hey, you know, a 10th pick Death Prophet would be really good here. These are my boys. I saw this lineup when they're... How did VP lose this game? I went back and watched it, and they just got run down. TA had a good lane, took over the game early. Lesh is still ridiculous if he doesn't get completely shut down in the first 10 minutes. He knocks down towers quick, and if he has anybody that he can play around, in this case, there was an Omni Knight and Avenge, both of which can set up and keep him alive. Oh, they just ran him down, and the Naga couldn't do anything. VP never got the team fight together. And that was the one series where Reality Rift looked like a real team. Now, I want to segue this into a really difficult question, Lyrical. The fuck's going on with Virtus Pro?
Well, I first want to take a moment to acknowledge the common pain that we feel when we say, God, I love this draft so much. It's amazing. And they just get rolled, because it happens to me so often. It's a really frustrating feeling. But as far as VP goes, I mean, it's just not the same, right? You went from having 5 of the best players to ever play at their respective positions, and now you got 2 folks that... maybe they're going to end up being really, really solid in the future, and then Resolution playing 3. So I don't know. I don't think it's not the VP of old. In general, CIS to me just feels kind of weak. I feel like they've taken a big step back in a way. And to me, Na'Vi did look very good at various points. To me, they're the team to watch now. I guess you could go with the meme of Pasha was right if you want. But part of the other reason that you have that is, like, it's another one of those teams that's a big mixture of people from all over that region. Mm-hmm. You got Zayats, right, who's playing and playing from Kyrgyzstan, and has kind of been willing to... I think it's one of the issues that you've often seen from these CIS teams, is that it tends to be like mono country again. Mm-hmm. And they have made some changes to that in some ways from Virtus Pro. You know, you've got Save, who's from Moldova, but then it's still like the rest of them are either Russian or Ukrainian players. Not that that's necessarily a bad thing, but it feels like they're almost self-limiting in a way where they're not looking at some of those other people. Like, I don't know, maybe Na'Vi was just able to outbid them to keep Zayat on their team, but to me at least it felt like this would be the guy that you would want to go and pick up if you don't have Roger playing for you. So I don't know. I think that the VP lineup is just they're just not as good.
Oh, it's definitely true. I guess my curiosity really comes from, I didn't expect VP to be, as you said, VP of old. You know, they're not going to be top 3, but no one, even Resolution on 3 and then Solo on the 5, that's a lot of star power. That's a lot of Dota experience. That's a lot of individual skill. Epileptic Kid has looked decent from the few games that I've seen with Virtus Pro. I don't know much about Save, but I feel like they've got the tools to at least place middle in the pack. I don't think this team should be getting dead last.
I agree, but it's. I think that it also speaks to one of the problems that we've seen in Dota of trying to get star power in over like a cohesive lineup, I guess, right? Like,
do you think Rezo's good? I see somebody in chat saying just like straight up Resolution sucks. I don't know. Everyone's trying to be nice about it. Do you think Rezo is part of the problem?
It's a question. It's definitely a question. I think that, first of all, obviously you can't not like Resolution as a person. I don't know what he's like to play with, because when you look at where he went to after, I mean, the big standout to me was, I think that the strongest case that he actually had for his like talent in general was when he went in with Empire and they won the tournament because of him at TI, or not won the tournament. They placed really, really well at TI. Was that TI 6 or TI 7? I'm not sure which one it was. And that was one where it was like everybody was like, oh, he just came in and he carried all of them. And it was true. He played really, really well, but that was already a really good Team Empire team, and he replaced Chappie. Since then, he hasn't been able to find success. And the question is, how much of that is with the player and how much of that is with the team that he's been playing with? the fact that he played with OG and then they weren't able to make it work there. Now, you could chalk that up to differences in play style and him needing a specific play style around him. But to me, that feels like a bit of a limiting factor. I would never say the resolution sucks. He's an incredibly talented player, but it feels like he fits within this niche where he needs to be able to play other styles. I think that's part of the reason that he switched to 3 is he's trying to switch that up and be able to be a more dynamic player where he doesn't just need to like farm AFK for a really long time.
Yeah.
So I think that this is, to me, a year for growth for him, where it's not that he's bad, but he needs to refine certain aspects of his play style, and that's why he switched things up, which naturally is going to mean that VP is going to be behind.
And yet, speaking of dynamic, Ramses has been looking so good on the 3. I mean, obviously EG just made a good run, but talking about transition to a different role, different play style, Ramses has really stepped up and just consistently looked solid.
Well, he's also always been a little bit of like almost an offlaner in a way. I don't know if you feel this way at all, but when you think of like his iconic heroes, I remember games of him playing Timbersaw in safe lane. I remember games of him playing Brood in safe lane.
Yeah.
I feel like I remember games of him playing Death Prophet.
He's good at making space and taking space.
Yeah.
So yeah, you're right. He has kind of played that style, and if they give him room to play a little bit more greedy, and he's a proper core in a lot of these games.
Totally. And that's not always something that you see from other 3 positions nowadays.
Yeah.
But it feels like he can also be that carry depending upon what they need. And I think that's the biggest strength of this EG lineup right now and why they were able to get so far. Ramses is a hell of a player. I think that I was definitely skeptical coming into this season for EG. They definitely proved the haters wrong. EG's not top tier. Let's go.
Yeah, no doubt. And while we're just kind of bouncing around players, I also just want to quickly mention again Nisha.
Hey.
This guy, I've harped on this in past podcasts, but I said maybe 6 months ago that like if they keep this up, I think he is going to rival Sumail in terms of rags to riches in trajectory. He went from Team Kingwin and Let's Do It for like 4 years, then to Team Secret. He joined in September of 2018, and since joining, he's won $800,000. And all the events they play, and they've won.
Yeah.
Look at all these first place trophies. They won the PvP Esports Championship, first place ESL Hamburg, second at the KL Major, first at the Chongqing Major, first at ESL 1 Katowice, fourth at Dream League Season 11, first at MDL Disney Paris, first at ESL 1 Birmingham 2019, fourth at TI 9, and then first at the Dream League Season 13 Major. I mean, like, this kid, quote unquote, he's 19 now, has just stepped up, and it's not like he's being carried. It's like, oh, you joined Secret and then you carried Puppy. He is one of the most, is he the most consistent carry in Dota right now? Like, I feel like I didn't see him have a bad game this tournament until the finals. There was one of the specific games where he got shut down super hard. Maybe it was game 2 or game 3, but outside of that, he had like almost a perfect tournament, dare I say.
No, definitely. And I think that part of the reason that happens, part of the reason that happens is because his team is making sure that he gets that done. But when they make sure that he gets what he needs, he never drops the ball. That to me is the most important part of Nisha, is that he very rarely, if ever, throws a game away or isn't able to convert when his team needs him to. But I will say that all those wins, all those timings when they're able to win, it also coalesces with another player on Team Secret who got added on the same day, which is Zai.
No doubt.
And for my money, there was one thing that I wanted to make sure that I said, but when I was thinking about talking about this tournament as a whole, and it's that I think Zai might be the best Dota player that there is. I think that he is so unreal good. And there was a game that happened in the finals that was super emblematic of that when he was playing Enchantress. And there were all of these moments that just stood out to me where he was like, he wasn't necessarily being a playmaker. He wasn't doing anything fancy. He went like pipe, hurricane pike on Enchantress, but he made so many things happen by enchanting creeps and sending them around the map, getting extra vision, there's this moment that I remember where he took over a range creep in the mid lane as Enchantress. They're playing Radiant. His entire team runs north. He sends it south, denies both bounty runes, and then pulls a creep wave back to keep it from pressuring the tower. And then they're able to bring in Nisha to clear out a double wave that comes in afterwards. Yeah. And it's like these little moments where he's just like such a game winner. Or like another thing, he takes over a troll creep, goes to the mid lane with it while he's like, off on the other side of the map with his team. He summons skeletons and then sends each of the skeletons out to scout the jungle to see where EG is. Like, it's so many of these like tiny little plays. And I don't think that it's a coincidence that he's one of the players that also decided to like finish his schooling. Yes. And that's like, whether it's because he's the type of person that would want to finish his schooling or whether his schooling helped to influence his gameplay, I don't think it matters one way or the other. But to me, that's another standout part of the reason.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's a great contender for like actually just best Dota player. I mean, even back when he was younger in the Heroes of Newerth days, he was always known for playing these Sand King-esque kind of elusive heroes and being so good at reading the state of the game. It was a perfect example that you just brought up of just, he dies sometimes, but it's almost always for a cause. He's always making these moves, causing these sort of distractions. I mean, a lot of players make space, but he's really good at seemingly getting in the head of the enemy, reading where they want to go. Right. He's the Blake Martinez of Dota.
There you go.
He's reading the defense, Gabe. Yeah, absolutely. He's really good at making the cores on his team look good.
Well, and the other thing that sits in with that too is it's not just like, to me, he can't have those flashy moments like at Chongqing Major. He was the person that cliffed Arteezy on Darkseer and was like the big setup where they ended up losing the game because of it.
Yeah.
But he also has these moments where it's like, it's not really you pick it up, but it's like every single moment of the game, he's doing more than somebody else to win it. He's just a game winner, in a non-flashy way on top of that. So it allows these other people like Yapsor to like have a huge moment where he gives space to Yapsor to get farm, and he's doing all the little things that his team needs along the way. So to me, that's part of the reason that it stands out.
Yeah, I'm certainly a big Yapsor fan as well.
Totally.
I mean, he's not underrated these days. He's appropriately rated. He is so insanely good at making rotations, absorbing space. To me, that's the hallmark of Secret, is that they have all these individual players that, play greedy or have whatever style. And I think Puppy is that key force that helps it all gel. You'll see them tactfully take moments like, all right, Yapsor, here's your 5 minutes. Just fucking farm, buddy. We got you. You see it in a lot of games. Like, did you see?
Yeah, totally.
Was it the group stage where Yapsor played Darkseer? That's sort of what that game was like. So don't worry. Just take the Darkseer. We know you're going to make some plays, make some setups. He's surging people, and he's just soaking up farm. He's playing the vacuum cleaner.
I love it.
Yeah, absolutely. So
we were talking real quickly about the bottom four also.
Yeah.
I just had to throw this out there. It was one of the saddest tweets ever by my boy Jack Chen. Did you see that one?
No, but please share, because Chaos Esports did not look good this tournament.
So he posted 14 hours ago, part of this common U.S. airport arrival interaction is getting real old for the squad. Where are you coming from? Germany? What for? Esports tournament? Oh, cool. How'd you do? Head dropped slightly. Not great. Oh, welcome home. It's time to step up and do NA proud. Isn't that the saddest tweet ever?
It is. But I think appropriately so. We talked about Reality Rift, and they at least had a moment. They 2-0'd VP. That's something to be proud of. Chaos Esports Club did not win a single match in this major. They got 2-0'd by Beast Coast, then 2-0'd by Vici, which is fair. Vici's a world-class team. And then they lost one game to Aster and lower bracket round one. So that's it. 0-5, you're done.
I'm pretty sure they had the toughest group, if I'm not mistaken. I don't know if there's another group I'm more scared of going into this.
Yeah, Secret, Vici, Beast Coast. You're not wrong. It's a difficult group. This is one of those, like as we said at the beginning, would have liked to at least see him go 2-1 against Beast Coast. If they went 2-1 against Vici, I'd have a much different tone right now. of like, dude, they put up a great series against a top 3 team at the major. That's something to be proud of, but you got a shit group. That's not really the case here. You didn't have a game that went longer than 40 minutes, dude. And you went 0-5. Like, that's bad. Sorry. I love this team. I want to love this team. I love the management. I love the players. I feel bad being harsh, but what the fuck happened?
I mean, well, so I'll reveal my biases right at the start. Jack, obviously, close friend. I like all of the players on Chaos a lot. So this could sound like excuses, but I gotta say, going into this group, and then also the match that they won against Beast Coast, it's the first match that they played of the tournament, where a lot of things could change. Maybe you have some ideas about Dota that just end up being wrong, and it happens. To me, the big thing I would say is that Aster loss. That sticks out as the one that is really tough to stomach, because that's a team that I think that they should beat. And I'll also say that this core group of players have consistently had pretty tough draws at the group stages. Again, I go back to like the Chongqing Major, and they're playing in a group against like Secret LGD plus one other. And it's like a very consistent story that they've had where they feel like they're better than their placements. Everybody tells them that they're better than their placements. And then to run into it again, maybe it takes just too much of a mental toll, and that's something that they need to work on themselves. But it just, I think that they're better than this placement, even at this tournament. So I don't know.
They certainly should be on paper. Right. I think, you know what, Gabe? I think teams just need to stop picking Underlord. He was picked 16 times and had a 31% win rate. Because I'm looking at that game 3, and Chaos EC did pick Underlord, and that hero seems to be a paperweight, dude. I mean, their draft wasn't that bad, but you look at just the way the game played out, it was a fairly even laning phase. At 10 minutes, they lost a little skirmish. At 15 minutes, they lost another skirmish, and it just kind of snowballed from there until the lead was so big that Aster could just kind of cripple them and run up to the high ground at 35 minutes. It wasn't one of these back and forth games where you went all in or you got caught at the Roche pit. You just kind of got outplayed until you couldn't match up against them.
Well, wasn't it like a super aura draft? What was the roster from Aster?
The Aster draft was Centaur, Drow, Shadow Fiend, Venge, Rubik. So yeah, pretty aura heavy.
I think that looking at that, I don't know. So there actually probably is I think it looks like that Shadow Fiend, was that the last pick? I think that it was.
It was, yeah. It was a 10th pick Shadow Fiend.
So to me, that stands out as like, you've got this lineup that's built around trying to defend towers. That is your goal, and win team fights afterwards. You pick the Treant Protector to try and hold your towers. You pick the Underlord to be able to stand in a lane and make sure that they don't take it. But if Aster just all in for a tower after tower after tower, I don't know how Chaos actually stops that with this draft. So to me, it feels like it is just
a bit of
an outdraft that happens. Because like, if Drow, Venge, and Shadow Fiend are just pressuring your tower, and I want to see, can you? I'm trying to find the game. Did Shadow Fiend go the Presence Aura Effects building talent also?
Drop a link in Twitch chat here. That's a good question. Shadow Fiend, where's his damn talents at? He did not. He went 30 movement speed.
Okay. Well, that would have been like the all-in strat. So they still scaled for the later stages, or had answers for later stages. Yeah. But yeah, it's a scary lineup no matter how you look at it.
Yeah,
I feel like I just keep on making excuses.
Aster drafted for a best of one, though, for sure. Yeah. Like, they were ready with a strat that could play fast, also lane well, and Chaos just weren't quite ready for it. So,
true enough.
Yeah, I do agree with you. I think maybe I'm being a little hard on them. This was a tough matchup. You know,
I think it's fair.
But I want to see them do better. I really do. I think North American Dota needs it. We need more top-tier teams from the NA region. Please. NA Dota it's tough, dude. As a tier 2 event organizer in Dota right now, NA, like, I can't sell it to anyone, like, at all. If we want to do an elimination mode 4 or a Midas mode 3 or whatever the fuck it is, nobody wants to sponsor North American Dota right now. The viewership is awful. I can't convince any sponsor it's worth doing in North American region. Where all even South America has an angle, right? There's betting sites that work in South America. Brazil is a huge budding demographic for esports. NA is just like, now we got other games to play. You old dudes can play Dota. We're gonna go play Rocket League and Fortnite and whatever else. I guess Call of Duty, right? That's really the NA game right now.
I think though that part of it is a little bit of a generational thing, like you said, like the old dudes idea. That does feel like it's something that, I mean, even in terms of like, you think back to that thing you're talking about of like the rock music at Dream League. That's kind of a boomer little moment right there, right? You know, I'm perfectly fine with that. I'm pretty cool with that. That's a perfectly fine thing.
I like variety. To me, variety is the spice of life. So I'm glad that Dream League is looking at what everyone else is doing and then going, hey, what can we do to stand out?
Right.
So any other thoughts about the major? We have a couple news points I want to touch on before we wrap this up. Obviously, True Sight is starting pretty soon, so we copped on a little early to make sure we didn't conflict with that. Very excited to watch this episode of True Sight and see the live presentation in Germany. So I'm just getting chills thinking about it, dude. The True Sights are so fucking epic.
There's no way it's better than last year's, but it's still always going to be good. It's going to be better than the year that Liquid won because I was just a 3-0. But it's going to be an interesting one. I'm excited to watch it.
So news. Let's start with one of the bigger announcements that came out yesterday. Dendi starting a new org called Bait B8. Very cool. There not a lot of details, but posted a 3-minute kind of advertisement. Almost, it was a sort of a Slaxian type pipe, to be honest.
It was so good.
I loved it. The production value was great. Dendi, the old man, and then at the end, you see him at the lake, and never say never. If you didn't catch the connections to free to play and the ending there with his father, then you need to go back and rewatch that shit and understand how epic that team announcement video was. I saw a lot of the news outlets kind of missed that angle. They just did the classic repost of, hey, here's the tweet, here's the announcement, cool. And it's like, guys, there's another layer here. You just got to take a moment to let it sink in. I don't think we have a roster announced yet, but I like this in general. It's cool to see OG now take this route where they're building up a team org. It's not just a Dota team anymore, but they're expanding out, OG Seed, all these sorts of things. Generally, I think that's good. I think we need more players that have won money from the space, won reputation from our audience, to reinvest that in the space to some degree. Maybe not even financially, just from a leadership perspective, pass the torch to the next generation of players that, you can help bring up and foster and mentor and coach. And I see this bait thing as sort of a step down that spectrum as well. And I think that's, generally speaking, just good for the ecosystem.
Absolutely. That would be the dream, to have everybody that ends up winning the big money be able to reinvest it back into making the scene stronger, and hopefully something like that does happen, because I mean the financial aspect to it is big as well.
True.
It definitely is. I will say that I think it might be the greatest team launch video ever, and like team launch event. I don't know, it seems really, really good. The old age makeup just absolutely killed me. It was so unreal. And then they have like those little Easter eggs of like President of Estonia puppy that's like on a visual monitor as he's walking out of the house and stuff too. It was really, really good. I loved it.
So I'll drop a link to Dendi's Twitter. He posted it there. Sorry, I'm feeling a little lazy today. But yeah, it was a great video, worth watching. And I mean, everybody loves Dendi, but big Dendi fan here. He's always been very, very generous, nice. I've known him for years now. Even when I was like an up and coming caster. When you're like a tier 2 caster, you're kind of at your first TI or your first event, and you're not really sure how the players feel about you, if they respect you, or if they feel like you're just kind of making noise over their game, or if they even know who you are. And I found that some of them kind of don't give a shit and just sort of ignore you. But there's a minority of players that understand that they sort of need to help you bridge that gap of knowledge a little bit, and they're pretty happy to give you a little bit of their time and chit chat and just try to help bridge the gap, share some of that perspective as sort of a mutual respect of we're all part of the same ecosystem. And Dendi was Dendi and Loda were the big two. Like, they sit down next to me in the green room, and I'm kind of like, oh shit, and then they're like, hey, how's it going? Yeah, I'm Daniel. How's it going? Yeah, what's up, man? Oh, cool. You like this game? They're super friendly, super approachable, and that. It really helped build my confidence as a young caster. So
I know exactly what you mean, and it's not even just like giving information. It's just like being a person that like is nice in general at the get go, and like somebody that's like understands pressure way more than we do because they have to actually play in the games. We just yell about it, but like gets the stress that can involve it, and just like is a nice person that is a friendly face. Like that is a it's something that when it happens from pro players, it's really, really nice.
Yeah.
S4 to me was the big guy that stood out as like, being a nice guy. I was always too nervous still to approach Dendi, and finally I did a couple of them. Yeah, they're just really cool dudes.
I got lucky because Dendi was at the major All Stars Dota 2 event in Malaysia that was really shitty, and there were only 8 teams there. So
sick.
That was one of those like we're all just gonna kind of huddle together and hope that we can weather the storm through this. If you were a foreigner, then you were on the same team. And there was like an after party, but there were public fans there, like VIP ticket holders.
Oh, no.
And Dendi showed up, and the elevator opened. And dude, it was one of those classic moments of real celebrity fandom where one person turned and said, "Oh my God, it's Dendi!" And then everyone turned in unison, and they just charged. And he put his hands up, just kind of like, "It's okay, it is okay. I will be here, please." And I helped bodyguard a little because I felt so bad. That it was just this. It was like the Beatles, dude. People started screaming, "Oh my God!" And the look on his face was the elevator door opens. And you go, "Oh shit! Yep, I should have taken the stairs." So it's,
right.
I lucked into that one. I get to step up.
That's awesome.
Box people out of the way. Back up. Celebrity coming through. JerAx retires. That news went public a couple days ago.
It was right before the finals too, actually, which was a little bit weird. I felt like, or maybe it was right before, not the finals. It was like in the middle of the tournament though. It was when the announcement went down, which I found a little bit strange. Because then it felt like in a way, I imagine as a talent at that event, in a way you want to address it, but at the same time, if you do address it, then that kind of like takes away from the event that you're talking about right there as well. So the timing of that to me felt weird, but it's obviously really, really sad. I think that it makes sense in a way. I think it's really hard to keep up the motivation to win when you've already won twice, and like to be the very best. And then like it's sort of, I think that anybody that's successful will have had this feeling before where it's like, how do you find the motivation to keep up the level of work that it took to reach that level of success when you've already kind of achieved it? You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, for sure. Because you have to push at 110% to win a TI. It's a long grind, and you're competing against a lot of other people who are also pushing and making that sacrifice. It reminds me of that old saying of like either die a hero or live long enough to see yourself become a villain kind of thing. And there's something to be said for going out while you're on top instead of sticking around until you've just, burned that torch. It's like, I'm still kind of here, guys, but I suck now. And not that I think JerAx could still keep playing if he wanted to, but it is certainly a function of motivation. And I think a degree of good on him for realizing that. That's a difficult decision to come to terms with.
Totally. I think... Well, and somebody was pointing out in chat, and I think that this is probably the best reason why it happens too, that it has to kind of be timed with True Sight coming out. So it was like, when do we actually do it? Maybe there's not a great time to do it. But it definitely sucks. It's going to suck to see him gone. I hope that he still plays pubs every now and then, but I kind of wonder if he even will. I feel like he probably will at some point, just to like sort of cast those games casually every now and then, or to check it out.
Yeah,
who knows? Maybe he'll make like a Chinese retirement.
Did he say what he's planning on doing at all? Because we saw this with Chow 8. He retired after they won TI, and then after 2 years, he came out of retirement because he was just fucking bored. It's just like he's watching everyone else play Dota, just like, even if I'm not winning, it's still kind of fun. Now there's just no pressure. I already won, so I can just play for fun or coach some younger players or whatever it is. So it makes me wonder, just like what's when you're living that roller coaster lifestyle, it seems like such a breath of fresh air to be able to sit back and live low stress, but you kind of get addicted to that adrenaline after a while.
Yeah.
And it's hard to sit back. I mean, if I don't cast on land for a year, I watch majors and kind of have that feeling of like, I kind of want to be there, dude. It looks like they're having a lot of fun. I want to make jokes with Rich right now. I want to chest bump Sheever. What the fuck, man?
Yeah, totally.
So I can imagine for players, if you've won a TI, I mean, that level of adrenaline dwarfs anything I've experienced as a caster. So how do you just hang that up and then be good, just chilling, watching other people live the dream for the next 10, 20, 30 years?
Well, and particularly, I think for these players that are young, I mean, and again, it's not like JerAx is super young, but he's on the younger side still. He's 25,
say younger than 30
for
sure. So.
Yeah, like I have those same type of feelings. I turned 30 this year too, where it's like, yes, I want to spend more time with my wife and my dogs and with my family, but it does kind of have those moments where you still feel that desire, that rush, and the question is, do you fill your life with something else that is meaningful enough, or that brings you enough satisfaction that you don't need that, or are you going to like be so drawn back into it? And it really is on a person by person basis. And I don't know, we'll see with him. If he finds something that he really loves, like I think about Ake, for instance, right? Like that's somebody that was gone, and I think that a big part of the reason he's able to stay gone for so long is because he had so much other stuff going on in his life. Like, wasn't he a model and he had like a business that he was doing and everything else?
He's at a cool one where I don't know if it's his wife or his partner or whatever. She's also a software developer, and I think they both work for the same software development firm in Sweden. And maybe they own it or founded it, or he was involved at an early stage. But even when he was a pro player, he had a pretty lucrative, I understand, side project going. So yeah, and I mean, so if JerAx has a vision, or he's going to start a business doing something else, I could totally see it. But yeah, he's young to be, quote, like retired the way my dad just retired.
Right? Of course,
he's going to do something. Can't wait to see.
He's going to keep showing up to tournaments and stuff as well.
Yeah.
Oh God, analyst JerAx, analyst casters beware, he's coming.
Yeah.
We'll see. It'll be interesting. I'm excited to watch. It's going to be sad to miss him. And then he put out that little meme tweet where Earth Spirit got buffed, and he's like, I take everything back.
Yeah. So the last thing I wanted to touch on is not related to esports, kind of the big news circulating right now that, feels appropriate just to at least mention, man. The Kobe Bryant I don't even know what disaster was the word that comes to mind, but that doesn't even seem appropriate. Just it's a real heartache, and just one of those, this is just fucking sad. He passed away from a helicopter crash, 41 years old. His daughter, he has, I think, 4 daughters. One of them was in the helicopter with him. She also passed away, and then several other folks that were also involved in the crash. So pretty crazy stuff. It's hard to digest, dude. 41 is not old. I just turned 30. It's just like, holy shit, dude. I didn't even realize that he wasn't that much older than me. The older you get, the less of a difference it feels like there is between 10 years.
I just posted this thing into chat, and it's like the fucking saddest thing ever. And this was one of the things that stood out to me. So there's 2 things that go along with this. One is just the like iconic sports piece that he was just like such an amazing player. And you have these things that go on now where it's like, you think about like inside the NBA, right? Where it's like Shaq and Charles Barkley that get together and they like bullshit and talk and have all this fun. And it's like these people that remember back to these days of playing against each other fondly and share these stories. And now we're going to miss so many of those. Like, can you imagine a panel that happens at some point in the future? It could have happened at some point in the future with like LeBron and Kobe and talking about these games that they played against each other, with Dwayne Wade hopping in. You have these like iconic people that are there that speak about these moments of like intense passion and anger and frustration with each other, but then they like are able to reconcile those kind of, you know, differences of competition, and then be like it's just this like this full circle thing that's never going to happen. But then outside of that too, there's the other side of it, which was the dad and daughter like dynamic too. And she was also a basketball player. And there were some people that were talking about her potentially being one of the first people, one of the first women to try and enter the NBA.
Right.
Because she was so good.
Yeah.
And it's just like, it's
she
so
had Kobe as her private
sad.
coach. So it makes sense.
It is heartbreaking. I'm a super big basketball fan. I haven't talked about it a ton, but I grew up watching the Warriors, and what that meant in the early 90s was that I just watched Kobe beat my team's ass over and over and over again. It was like, and I put this in a tweet, but it was like, he always felt like this sort of superhero figure that just when you thought you were going to take him down, he came back in and whooped your ass. And that's the type of character that like makes the game better, because it gives you something to root against. And it was absolutely heartbreaking. It was so sad.
Yeah. Ugh. Yeah. He retired in 2016, man. He'd only been retired for a couple of years. Still had so much to do, so much philanthropy, man. So much impact ready to be given upon the world. Now gone. So fuck, dude, heavy stuff. But you know, I definitely would have regretted not bringing it up and just taking a moment to appreciate the time we had with him. You know, I wasn't a huge basketball fan, but he's, you know, one of like 5 players that I have vivid memories of watching, which is sort of puts into context just when you see these superstars, they really stand above the rest. And it's
totally. Check out that tweet later, by the way, the one from the Sports Center ones. Because holy shit, if you need a second to cry, that's the one right there. Ugh.
Did you? I see somebody mentioning it in chat. Did you see that really weird fake news thing about Rick Fox as well? That Rick Fox
was so much
was in the like that was. I saw like that shit. I was like, why is Richard Lewis tweeting about Rick Fox? I was like, is this were people really confused by this? Like, wasn't Rick Fox just tweeting? Like, it's just some of it is just so stupid that like this doesn't need. Huh?
I don't know. I don't know, man.
That's the dark side of the modern age of social. I saw all sorts of videos. It's like the videos of people using the news headline inappropriately to get clicks for unrelated content, and then the meta of people making videos about those people, which are also driving. It's just like, oh God,
please end this world. Please. Whatever it takes, you know, we got coronavirus or whatever you pronounce it as, just let it take over everything. Let's end it.
Yeah, the news is tough these days. I'll definitely give you that one.
Jesus.
But all right, gang. Well, I think we're done here. Thank you so much for watching Shared Tangos episode 3. Of course, Trent will be back in the very near future. Baby number 2 has joined the world, so he's doing daddy time right now, taking care of the new baby and spending some much needed time with his +1. So, Lyrical, thank you so much for stepping in, man. It was a pleasure. And
thanks for having me.
Yeah, no problem, folks. Make sure you give him a follow at Lyrical Dota on Twitter. You'll find him on Twitch somewhat regularly as well. So make sure you give him a follow so you can find all those streams. And if you don't have it on your calendar already, you better block off the next couple hours, because True Sight, the countdown has begun. We're going to sit back and enjoy, and I think that'll round out the rest of our day. So with that said, this VOD will be up in about 24 hours. The audio will go up right away on the Shared Tangos RSS feed. We're on Simplecast now under the Blink Entertainment platform. I'm going to drop a link to that here in a moment to make sure everyone subscribes. But now we're on Spotify, we're on iTunes, we're on Google Play. Our overlays are halfway constructed, so things for Shared Tangos are really improving here. We appreciate all you listeners out there. Big hearts. We'll see you next time.